Your plants are not failing because of the weather. They are not failing because of pests. They are not failing because you do not have a green thumb. They are failing because of what is happening 6 inches underground where you cannot see it and where most gardening advice never goes. The soil. Not whether you have it, what condition it is actually in, and what you are doing to it every single season without realizing it. Because here is what nobody tells you. You can buy the right plant, put it in the right location, water it on the right schedule, and still watch it underperform every single year if the soil underneath it has one of these 6 problems. Today, I am going through every one of them. What the mistake is, exactly what it does to your plants below the surface, and the specific fix for each one. And the mistake at number 4 is the one I see in nearly every struggling American garden I have ever looked at closely, and almost nobody connects it to the plants dying above ground. Drop your state in the comments right now. Soil conditions vary dramatically across American climates, and I will be calling out zone and region-specific guidance throughout this entire video. Drop it below. Mistake 1. You have never tested your pH, and your plants are starving because of it. This is the foundational mistake, the one that makes every other effort you put into your garden less effective than it should be. And it is completely invisible to the eye. Your soil looks fine. Your plants are in the ground. You are watering and fertilizing, and nothing is performing the way it should. Yellow leaves despite regular feeding. Slow growth despite good light. Flowers that never quite reach the size or number the tag promised. The cause, in a significant number of these cases, is pH. Soil pH is a measurement of acidity and alkalinity on a scale of 0 to 14. 7 is neutral. Below 7 is acidic. Above 7 is alkaline. And the reason this number matters more than almost any other soil characteristic is what University of New Hampshire Extension research documents directly. pH determines whether the nutrients already present in your soil can actually be absorbed by plant roots, not whether nutrients exist, whether they are chemically available in a form roots can take up. At a pH above 7.5, essential micronutrients, including iron, manganese, zinc, and boron, form solid compounds that dissolve poorly in soil water. They are physically present in the soil and completely inaccessible to roots at the same time. You add fertilizer. The nutrients go into the soil. The pH locks them away. The plant starves in soil full of food it cannot reach. At a pH below 5.5, the opposite problem creates different damage. Aluminum and manganese become soluble at toxic levels. Microbial activity, the biological engine that converts organic matter into plant-available nutrients, slows dramatically. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium availability all decline sharply. Most vegetables, perennials, and flowering shrubs perform best in a pH range of 6 to 6.8. Blueberries, azaleas, and rhododendrons want 4.5 to 5.5. Lavender and most Mediterranean herbs prefer 6.5 to 7.5. The fix is straightforward and inexpensive. An at-home pH test kit costs under $15 at any garden center and gives you a reading in minutes. For a more comprehensive analysis, your state's cooperative extension service offers soil testing for $10 to $20 and returns results with specific amendment recommendations for your exact soil. To lower pH, make it more acidic, work elemental sulfur into the top 6 inches of soil. To raise pH, make it more alkaline. Add pelletized garden lime. Neither change happens overnight. Allow 4 to 6 weeks after amendment before retesting. Get this number right once, and every other input you give, that garden starts working the way it was supposed to. Mistake 2. You are walking on your beds and compacting the roots to death. Compacted soil is one of the most common and most invisible causes of poor garden performance in American home gardens. And the cause is almost always foot traffic. Walking across a bed to reach a plant, kneeling on the soil surface during planting, children or pets running across the bed repeatedly through the season. Every step compresses soil particles together, collapsing the microscopic air pockets that healthy soil depends on. Here is what those air pockets actually do. Plant roots do not just absorb water and nutrients, they breathe. Root respiration requires oxygen continuously. Roots in oxygen-depleted compacted soil cannot function normally. They cannot extend outward to access more nutrients. They cannot form the healthy root hair structures that absorb water efficiently. They grow sideways near the surface instead of downward, where cooler, more stable soil moisture exists. That shallow root system is then vulnerable to every heat wave, every dry week, every temperature swing that a deep root system would handle without stress. Compacted soil also prevents water infiltration. Instead of soaking into the root zone, water pools on the surface and runs off, taking topsoil with it. The result is a garden that looks like it received water and has dry roots 2 hours later. The test. Drive a pencil or thin screwdriver into your soil with hand pressure alone. In healthy, uncompacted soil, it should penetrate 6 inches without resistance. If it stops at 2 or 3 inches, the soil is compacted and it is limiting every plant growing in it. The fix has 2 components, immediate and long-term. For immediate relief, work a broad fork or garden fork into the bed, gently lifting and loosening without inverting the soil layers. Inverting destroys the soil structure you are trying to restore. Then apply a 2 to 3 inch layer of compost across the entire surface and let rain and soil biology work it downward over the following weeks. Long-term, establish permanent pathways in every bed. Never step on the planting area again. Raised beds with defined edges solve this problem permanently for anyone willing to set them up once. The no-dig gardening method, building up fertility through annual surface applications of compost rather than tilling, prevents compaction from recurring while simultaneously building the soil biology that makes everything else work better. Mistake 3. Your drainage is wrong, and your roots are suffocating. Poor drainage kills more plants in American gardens than drought, cold, pests, and disease combined. And it kills them in a way that looks exactly like underwatering until it is too late to reverse. Yellowing leaves, wilting despite wet soil, root systems that are brown, soft, and deteriorating. The plant looks thirsty. The roots are drowning. When soil drainage is poor, water saturates the root zone and displaces the oxygen roots need for respiration. Within 24 to 48 hours of waterlogged conditions, roots begin to suffocate. Within 72 hours, the anaerobic bacterial populations that cause root rot establish in the oxygen-depleted zone and begin breaking down root tissue. The visible damage above the soil surface appears days or weeks after the underground damage is already severe. The drainage test every American gardener should do before planting anything in a new bed. Dig a hole 12 inches deep and 12 inches wide. Fill it completely with water and let it drain fully. Fill it again, and time how long complete drainage takes. If the hole empties within 1 hour, drainage is adequate. If water is still standing after 2 hours, drainage is poor enough to kill most plants that prefer anything other than consistently wet conditions. The fix depends on the severity. For moderate drainage problems, work coarse sand and compost deeply into the existing soil. A minimum of 12 inches. Coarse sand opens the soil structure. Compost adds organic matter that improves both drainage and moisture retention simultaneously. For severe drainage problems, raised beds built above the problem, soil eliminate the issue entirely by creating a new rooting environment with controlled drainage. A 2-inch layer of coarse gravel at the base of any raised bed or deep container provides drainage insurance regardless of what the soil below it does. In zones 3 through 6, where heavy spring rain and late winter snowmelt create seasonal drainage problems, raised beds are not just convenient. For heavy-feeding vegetables and sensitive perennials, they are the difference between a productive season and a frustrating one. Mistake 4. You are adding fertilizer to broken soil and making the problem worse. This is the mistake I mentioned at the start, the one that shows up in almost every struggling American garden and almost nobody identifies correctly. A plant is yellow, weak, or underperforming. The gardener's instinct is to feed it more fertilizer, and the plant gets worse. Here is the biology that explains why. Chemical fertilizers are salt-based compounds. Every application adds salt to the soil. In a healthy soil with good microbial activity, those salts are processed and the nutrients they carry become plant available. In damaged soil, compacted, pH imbalanced, poorly drained, or biologically depleted, that processing does not happen efficiently. The salts accumulate. Salt accumulation at the root zone draws water out of root cells through osmosis, the same process that makes ocean water deadly to drink. The roots dehydrate in moist soil. The plant shows drought stress symptoms. The gardener adds more water, sometimes more fertilizer, and the accumulation increases. University research from multiple American land-grant institutions documents this cycle consistently. High-salt fertilizer applications to already stressed root systems accelerate decline rather than reverse it. A plant under stress from compaction, pH imbalance, or drainage failure cannot process fertilizer. It experiences it as additional stress. The fix is a soil flush before any amendment program. Water the bed heavily and continuously until water runs freely from the base for several minutes. This physically moves accumulated salts below the root zone. Then address the underlying structural problem: pH, compaction, or drainage. Before returning to any fertilization program, feed only actively growing, visibly healthy plants in soil that is structurally capable of processing what you are giving it. Slow-release granular organic fertilizers like compost and aged manure introduce nutrients gradually without salt loading and simultaneously feed the soil biology that makes nutrients available naturally. Mistake 5. You are destroying your soil biology every time you till. Healthy soil is not a mineral substrate. It is a living ecosystem. 1 teaspoon of healthy garden soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and the mycorrhizal fungal networks that connect plant roots to soil nutrients across distances the roots themselves could never reach. This biology is what converts organic matter into plant-available nutrients. It is what creates the soil structure that prevents compaction. It is what protects roots from pathogenic organisms. An annual deep tilling destroys significant portions of it every time it happens. Mycorrhizal fungi form symbiotic relationships with plant roots, extending the effective nutrient absorption area of a root system by up to 700% according to research from the USDA. Those fungal threads are physically fragile. Tilling shreds them. The network that took a full growing season to establish rebuilds from scratch the following year, and the plant spends the first weeks of the season without its most powerful nutrient collection system. The fix is a fundamental shift in how you think about soil management. Apply fertility from the top down, not the bottom up. 2 to 3 inches of compost applied to the soil surface in spring feeds the biology immediately below it. Worm activity and microbial movement carries that nutrition downward over the season without structural disruption. Cover crops planted in fall, winter rye, crimson clover, Austrian winter peas, protect the soil surface from rain compaction, add organic matter when terminated in spring, and keep living roots in the ground feeding the biology through the coldest months. Never leave bare soil exposed. Bare soil loses biological activity. It compacts in rain. It loses topsoil in wind. Cover it with mulch, cover crops, or planting at all times. Mistake 6. Your mulch is doing the opposite of what you think. Mulch is one of the most universally recommended soil practices in American gardening. Apply it correctly, and it moderates soil temperature, retains moisture, suppresses weeds, and feeds soil biology as it breaks down. Apply it incorrectly, and it creates the moisture and temperature conditions that rot stems, invite fungal disease, and kill the plants it was supposed to protect. The two mulch mistakes that cause the most damage. First, depth. More than 3 inches of mulch creates anaerobic conditions underneath. Low oxygen, high moisture, high heat, that are biologically identical to the conditions that cause root rot. 2 to 3 inches is the correct depth for every mulch type in every climate zone. Second, contact. Mulch piled against the base of a plant stem or tree trunk creates a permanently moist environment against living tissue that was designed to exist in open air. Fungi establish in that moisture. Bark deteriorates. The damage is slow, invisible, and by the time it is visible above ground, the underlying tissue loss is already extensive. Keep all mulch 2 inches clear of every stem and trunk in your garden. That 2-inch gap is not a minor detail. It is the difference between mulch that helps and mulch that quietly destroys what you planted. The correct application, 2 to 3 inches of shredded bark, wood chips, or straw laid in a ring around each plant, extending to the drip line but never touching the stem. Refreshed once per year as the previous layer breaks down and feeds the soil biology beneath it. Drop a comment below right now and tell me which of these 6 mistakes you have been making without knowing it. Tell me what state you are in and what your soil looks like when you dig into it. I read every comment, and your answers shape the next video directly. If this gave you one thing you are fixing this week, subscribe right now. Practical, research-based, zone-specific gardening content every single week. Real solutions for real American gardens. The next video is already coming. Make sure it finds you.